consider the Columbia for terms of appointment by the council. In addition, tomorrow we have confirmation of the mayor's nomination of Latoya Foster to be the director of the Office of Cable Television, Film, Media, Entertainment. And we will have, as an emergency bill, only because of, excuse me, not as an emergency, as a resolution. Confirmation of the mayor's nomination of Kim Kang as director of the Office of Human Rights. Unbelievable number of contracts, 21 contracts on the agenda for tomorrow. I don't think any of them are confidential, although Councilmember Lewis George has made it clear that we should not be getting these contracts in the form that they are, which is that they're all technically retroactive, where the government, to be two agencies that have independent procurement authority, are not sending the option years for timely, and as a result, they do a partial option year, which is less than $1 million, and then they get around to increasing the amount, and then setting a full contract, and then we're approving retroactive memo, like respecting the process, and that the executive really doesn't care about following the law in that regard. We have another resolution. I don't think will be controversial. The ratification of the collective bargaining agreement between the teachers union and the government. That is on the non-consent agenda. Non-consent. That will be a fair amount of discussion. That will be approved. There's a emergency bill to give the authorization to the chief financial officer to go to the bond market for a general obligation bond and bond anticipation note. Capital plan, capital budget. Appointments to the government accountability. There are a number of emergencies. 9. I don't think it's commercial. That is sort of a quick review of tomorrow's agenda. I'm happy to take questions in a minute. Well, no, because I think most of you were at the mayor's press conference a little while ago. The council and the executive are very concerned about the majority, the new majority in the House of Representatives, considering 2 resolutions that would overturn 2 bills that were adopted by the council late last year. And that's the revised criminal code and the local resident voting rights amendment. When I first heard about this, I sent a letter to the majority of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, that urged that the caucus not support resolution. That wasn't to make a distinction. Majority to support the resolution, not at all. Our position is quite clear, and I articulated that on behalf of the council, that these bills were approved after public hearings, extensive discussion, and after amendment. While they may not reflect the views of some members of Congress, both were responsible enactments. Members of the House should not be looking to the district as an opportunity to score political points for their constituents. A copy of the letter is here, and that letter was sent by me. Members of the council wanted to sign a letter, so a letter was sent yesterday to both. Essentially making the same arguments that not support, and we do not want the House to step in. I will add beyond the letter that we've had this problem in many ways over the years with the House, primarily with the House, where they step in on a measure, but they don't look at the entire situation. what they propose, what the Republicans in the House propose is to overturn our revised criminal code and replace it with what? Or to just leave it right now, or what's the next step? Not that I want them to go. They don't even have the capability. Over the years, Congress has just can't oversee the district, which is a good thing in terms of home rule, but it just emphasizes the point that these are like not even half minute, quarter minute, 1/5 minute, stepping in and stepping in for whatever purpose an individual member has, but not addressing the total problem. So I'm just adding that to what these letters say. So the council is very clear, all the members. And I'll remind you that it was not unanimous on the override. All of the members signed a letter urging that the Congress not overturn the net. I can add as well that I've had several conversations with the mayor. I spoke with the Attorney General over the weekend. I believe he's seeing identical power, but communicating. While the council is government with the legislative branch, the role of the Attorney General is one that I think it's important that really posted what the. So let me leave it at that and put that question.
Since we're on the topic, let's just start with the revised criminal code, or I guess the revised criminal code amendment act, the RCCAA instead of the RCCA, because that's not confusing. What exactly, I mean, have you seen the text, or did you see the presentation that the mayor just gave us? Do you have any basic thoughts about this, the different proposals, whether it's increasing some of the criminal penalties back to what they are now, taking out the jury demandability and the second look expansion, just generally reactions?
Let me give a couple of reactions. First of all, the focus for me is that the House should not be overturning this legislation. And there's no law in the District of Columbia that can't be reconsidered, revisited, amended, revised. And so it's completely appropriate for the mayor to submit some legislation. But the issue here is, first and foremost, that the House, Congress should not be overriding this legislation. Our criminal code is considered one of the worst in the country. It was written in 1901. It's been added to, amended, revised over 120 years. It's clear, and in fact, one of the documents here is called the talking point. It's clear that the current code lacks definitions or elements for many offenses. It lacks offense levels, such as first-degree robbery, second-degree robbery, to ensure that more severe conduct is punished more severely. It contains outdated offenses, and it contains offenses that so the issue for me is that what we passed was a well thought out, deliberated, debated legislation. Doesn't mean people can't disagree with it. But simply overturning it leaves us with nothing. Again, the focus is that we should, the House should not overturn it.
Me, it doesn't seem like your sentiment to Congress that this was well thought out and that the bill itself is good necessarily lines up with basically all the changes that the mayor is proposing. So what's your take on those changes? They're quite substantive.
That we we'll take a look at it. If you're asking me whether I support them or not, I think that's premature, but I also think that that then gets us off point. Congress should not be overturning the statute. So we go back to the 1901 statute. Go back to the 1901 statute while we look at making some changes to right now is in the debate in the council. The comment was made that there was agreement on 95% of the bill. I think that's not too much. So we should go back to the 1901 statute because of some proposed changes to 1% of the bill.
Can you just talk procedurally? How do things work with the disapprovals Congress is considering right now and possible changes to the current law that was passed by the
Congress
council?
This is like a up or down. This is like kill these bills and have nothing, right? Or don't kill them. So that would be the House vote, and it has to go to the Senate. The Senate would have to vote the same way, and it has to go to the president.
So if all that played out, what happens to any amendments that are being proposed by the mayor right
We start over. Mayor has an amendment. I don't know what he's amending. I haven't looked at what he hasn't actually filed it, but I'm assuming that what she has proposed is an amendment to the law. If Congress overrides, then there's no law to it.
She said she talked to you about it. Can you talk? Well, did she talk to you about the changes she was going to propose?
Brief.
Okay, and you didn't have any reaction to or thought about it?
I hope. So if you want to talk about second chance, you have a conversation about second. That's not going to make a difference in terms of the Republicans in the House. I'm always open to looking at any of our laws, even laws that were passed a month ago. But the issue is not look, the issue is throwing out the whole revised code. That's the problem. It is Congress stepping in instead of dealing with the situation comprehensively. Not that I want them, but stepping in peacefully. That's leaving us with the 1901 code. Everybody agrees. Not addressing the unfairness in our criminal justice system. It's just not acceptable. And to be honest with you, the Second Look Act is certainly important and certainly worth looking at, but that's just not relevant to what is before the House. And I would add as well, I'm reasonably certain that no member of the House of Representatives of the United States of America has read the bill. And they don't know what's in that bill. And so all we're getting is really political rhetoric as a run-up to the 2024 election.
A lot about keeping the message focused on DC doesn't want Congress to intervene. Do you regret the mayor is pushing for changes of the bill right now while this is still a live struggle to get Congress to not intervene?
The mayor is doing what she's entitled to do, so no, I
said, you don't want to talk about the changes. I mean, does it pose a problem for being a united front against what Congress is doing?
let me just say that three branches, the Attorney General is not a branch. The two branches of the government are unified. The Congress does not step in. I'm quite clear on that. I've had several conversations with the mayor. Neither branch of government wants to.
I don't want to engage on the specifics of the changes she's proposing. I mean, do you support the trial expanding, jury trials?
I voted for the legislation, but I want to stay away from the substance because the substance. I want to stay away from the substance of the amendments they're proposing because they're not relevant to what the Republicans are going to do this week. If it was possible, if it was theoretically possible for the council to pick up those amendments and to approve everyone tomorrow, override would still go. Well, the vote Republicans would still vote for the bill. So it's just, we can have this discussion, the time for that discussion is when we get to the hearing on it. And there should be a hearing. Time is not today because it's not the issue for the House. House is that the new minority, excuse me, the new majority, a very slim majority, is racing down the track as fast as it can to score political points to overturn these bills and once again put the district at a disadvantage. Did it wrong? This is why you guys are on that side of the table.
My question is following up on his, are you not at all though concerned that you're asking Congress to stay out, but there seems to be a disagreement between the mayor and the council on what's best in this code? So they could take advantage of that and say,
I think there's some misunderstanding of the mayor's not vote for the law. Why didn't she sign on to the letter from the 15 council members? I don't think she was asked.
but clearly there's a disconnect between what she would.
I don't think she was asked. I talked to Brooke Pinto about I had a major hand in the drafting of it, but it came through Councilman Pinto's office. I don't.
I guess the question is, if you're unified and hands off, but within the crafting of the legislation, the mayor vetoed it, could they not use that as an excuse to say, hey, you guys aren't even on the same page?
Well, I made a point similar to that at the debate on the override. But at this point, to me, the focus is much clearer. And that is, for my part, to have a very simple message. Don't override the legislation. It was responsibly done. We can consider changes to it. If there's a bill pending and the mayor's introducing a bill, we will consider changes to it. Don't override the legislation. If you override the legislation, you're actually setting back the district in terms of criminal justice. You are putting back in place an outdated, some places archaic criminal code. It's considered one of the worst in the country. Don't override the legislation. Talk about all the other stuff. I choose not. Setting the event.
All right. Or I hope not. I don't know. Was I supposed to moderate it? I hope. Anyway, I warn them. Give me a quick day or two of notice. But anyway, seems like you've just decided this is over. They're going to vote to disapprove. Do you think the Democrats will hold the line for you, or what are your thoughts?
Hopefully the Democrats shouldn't be partisan. It should not be partisan. And, you know, I can say that until it's out from home and the Republicans are taking this good fight. Best I can tell is that what they're trying to do is to say that this criminal code revision is soft on crime.
That's what the mayor says, and that's what the union says, and
Well,
that's.
Republicans.
But I'm just saying,
And
doesn't that
they're
give them
trying to-
ammunition?
Points in trying to make the Democrats look bad. And that is the reason why I did these talking points, which I sent up there so that the Democrats can look at the bill. Frankly, folks ought to read the bill and ought to talk to some of the experts to better understand the bill. If you want to be tough on crime, then talk about policing and talk about prosecute.
Also, you were saying that this doesn't, I keep hearing this doesn't take effect till 2025. So if that is the case, you have plenty of time to mend or whatever.
Well, I'm glad you made that point, where you asked that question. Let's be clear about this. The criminal code revision effective in 2025, the jury trial is, much later, like 7 or later than that. So it's anybody who suggests that the calamitous consequences are immediate is lying. I say lying because the plain language of the legislation is, doesn't take a couple of
Okay, that's what I was curious about. So what is you have time to change it if you in fact do, and I've heard you all say time and time again, make changes.
As I said, council's a deliberative body. We're always open to considering amendments. I have every reason to believe that if the mayor introduces her bill, that there will be a hearing on it. We have plenty of time to consider changes to the legislation, to have a fuller debate and what the House is affording to us, and that the bill, what we enact, doesn't take effect for a couple of years.
You told us, I guess, a couple of weeks ago that no council or no Congress had changed the DC law since height limits. You said, I think that was like 30-some years ago. So does this give you pause, realizing that you're being watched? Yes.
We're being watched out. Does it give me pause? Yes.
Does it give the council pause on what it passes, given that you've got these people in the Capitol who are watching you, ready to pounce?
Not me, but every resident of the District of Columbia should recognize their vulnerability to the whims of decision makers in a democratic process who were not elected by or reflect constituencies of the District of Columbia. That gives me.
Do you think it's going to pull back? Is the council going to become more conservative as a result of this oversight?
No, I don't think, no. Maybe angrier.
But do you think this is?
And as I said at the end of my letter to the minority leader, Jeffrey, we would be happy to testify if the Republicans afforded us an opportunity for a hearing on this legislation. Why isn't there a hearing and they put the questions, why are you being soft on crime? And listen to the answer, the discussion. But there's not an interest in the Republicans, the majority of the House have not expressed any interest in reaching out and having us complain.
But do you, and this has come up before, but do you think the fact that the mayor is clearly on the other side, you overrode her veto by, I guess, 12-1, that suggests outside there's something here that they should perhaps they officially did.
Well, I can see why you would ask that question, but I'll go back to the mayor has been very clear in her discussions with me, and she has said this publicly. She doesn't want the House to pass the resolution. So yes, she is a pressing concern, but she's been clear the House is not the place to resolve that. That's what she has said about that. I would add as well what I've said before, which is that the House wouldn't. All they would be doing is overturning and setting us back to the 1901 code. I mean, not that I want this, but at least if the House were to develop the criminal code, all 400 pages of it and all of the analysis, that would be better than just simply rejecting this and throwing it in the dustbin. As I said, in the course of our consideration of the revised criminal code, The point was made that in rankings of criminal codes of the 50 states, it's close to dead last. Dead last, and that's where the House is going to send us back. Other questions? Yes. Yes.
One of the stories I guess we covered since the weekend was there was another valet stand attacked over the weekend outside of a restaurant downtown where I guess thieves have been going after car keys while people are dining inside. Now they're actually, in this most recent case, taking the whole stand and all the keys. And there are some who've been victimized telling us, I'm not valeting my car anymore. And you're trying to get people to come back and patronize your businesses downtown. Any concern that you have that now that's the latest target is people's keys while they're inside dining and their cars are outside?
I've been saying this for quite some time. If we want to revitalize, bring back the recovery of downtown, we need to look at the kinds of issues that are important to people in terms of making them feel comfortable and wanting to be downtown. And so one of them is the perception of public safety. And I've seen the presentations by the chief of police with regard to the statistics, and the violent crime is not as great as it's been in the past, but that doesn't change the fact that questions such as yours are very real to the victims, and that we need to do more in terms of policing as well as prosecuting. And that's an important point because oftentimes we look at policing, sometimes we look at sentencing, we don't look at prosecuting. And so are the police making arrests? And if not, what do they need to make the arrest? And if they're making the arrest, is the U.S. Attorney prosecuting? Because an arrest without a prosecution is kind of meaningless. And with the arrests and the prosecutions, we can turn the corner on all of these types of crime, whether they're violent or quality of life. And we need to do that to change the perception, regardless of the statistics, to change the perception.
An override in the House is just one of 3 steps. It has to go through the Senate and the President has to sign. Have you thought about making sure that those next 2 steps don't happen if the House overrides? Can you tell us? No, you have not yet had conversation. And the White House. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What's the current status of the negotiations between DCPS and Duke Ellington concerning the whole dual curriculum situation?
We've gotten a plan from the chancellor, and we've also received last week a plan from the I'm hesitating because I think it's called DESA, Duke Ellington School. I don't remember what it stands for. And I've been working closely with Councilmember Pinto, even though the school is citywide, it's in Ward 2. We're both of the same view that we want to keep Ellington wide and modeled that it's had. And so we'll be looking at those outstanding issues, figuring out our next step. So I don't really have an answer for you other than that we've gotten these plans and we're looking.
So as far as the timeline, when should we expect?
I may. I know there's been concern in the Duke Ellington community that somehow their rug's going to be pulled out from under them. We're vigilant that that not happen. So that anxiety and relax. They should, not relax like not worried the school's going to be radically changed in the next few months.
Thank you. My second question, what concerns, if any, do you have about the length of time it's taken to get the teacher's contract ratified, seeing as this iteration is retroactive and it expires in June?
We did ask about. I was very concerned that the contract took so many years to negotiate. And there are two parties to the negotiation. And so there can be a fair amount of finger pointing, but the fact is that the contract should have been negotiated soon. Because the agreement was, I believe, we did not get the contract until, I'm going to say 10 days ago. And we're moving very quickly. It's on the agenda tomorrow. Most of these collective bargaining agreements, when they come to the council, sit for 30 days and then they're deemed approved. We're acting tomorrow from it. Council is not going to hold this up. I saw another.
Possible override in the council tomorrow.
I don't think so, only because I'm not sure what we could do. What we did legislate. It's our role, but I'm open to.
At this point, there's nothing on the agenda.
I do have a question. Biden's limo doesn't seem to have the taxation without representation license plates. Did you petitioned?
I'm not sure. When I learned of this, I was surprised. Because you remember this was a big deal when Barack Obama was president. Tags on, and wouldn't have thought we'd be either. I mean, it's symbolic, but sometimes symbolism is important.
Hyde Act is in the news now. What would it actually take to amend it? Like, could you walk through what the process even would? Is it something the DC Council can pass, or does it have to be Congress?
The federal law from 19, and under the Home Rule Act, the Congress can-
In terms of this building, the Wilson building, like back to office, and council virtual hearings, hybrids, what's the plan? What's the status quo, and is there any thought of changing that in the coming months, year?
The council is moving toward hybrid hearing. I believe our rules permit them at this point, but you can slow to changing that. Council's been moving toward hybrid hearings. Our rules permit it. We've been a little slow in terms of committees actually doing it. Some of it's because it's difficult to do. Slightly different technologies. So that the presiding officer can both deal with members in person or witnesses as well as simultaneously. But we are. I don't think. Short term, I don't think we're going to be all 100% in person. How we want to approach it. I know my own office, we're going back to it.
Attend meetings virtually still?
Yes.
Is there any,
Rules permit.
what's the argument for not requiring them back in the building? You can have witnesses, I guess, testify remotely, but.
Well, it's kind of hard for me to answer that question because council's not discussed it since I believe last September. And last September, there was still several members who were very hesitant about coming back into the building. As I said, we'll be revisiting that. And if we revisit it, I can answer your question. And if we still allow it. With regard to the hearings, though, what we've learned is that, particularly with out-of-state witnesses, it's much easier to have participation if it's virtual or hybrid. You know, hearings have different purposes. It could be to hear from a select group of experts. It could be depending. Or less favorable. Couple more questions.
Chairman, this letter that you sent directly to Leader Jeffries, did you consider or did you ask the mayor to sign on to this?
I did talk to
Are you aware of members of the Hill who are concerned about or confused about her stance? Have you heard from representatives on the Hill who are confused about the mayor's stance on this?
I have not. So. We've been joined by.
On the Hyde Act,
Last
do you have any reaction to the big article on the front page of the Washington Post on changing the Hyde Act?
I think I don't support things. I think that particularly now in the context of recovering downtown, changing the Hyde Act as a way of recovering downtown is so mismatched. To change the Hyde Act would take several years, and then for an investor to acquire property would take several years, and for a development proposal to get to zoning approvals would take at least a year, if not a couple of years, and then to build it would be a couple of years, and and the mayor's recovery plan is for the next 3 to 5 years. So there's just a mismatch. I want to thank you all very much. I'm not running out of the room.